Merck More Than a Mother moves from Africa to Asia for the first time at Asia Pacific Initiative on Reproduction, Aspire, 7th Annual Congress with Her Royal Highness the Crown Princess Azizah of PAHANG, Malaysia, the ambassador of Merck More Than a Mother campaign to inspire and empower infertile women across the globe through access to information, health, and change of mindset.
I'm looking at the African problem, where you have more problem than Malaysia or in India as well. We are lucky in this country in a way that when I first started to have my fertility treatment, I had to go to Singapore because Malaysia only had GIF and they were doing IUI. So I went down to Singapore, but now Malaysia has from Penang, from everywhere, and also I believe the government hospitals have also started offering fertility treatment apart from the women ministry that we have.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is how it is in Africa. Most of the women are discriminated and mistreated because they are infertile. They are the only one to be blamed for infertility, although, as we all know, 50% of infertility cases are due to male factor, but it is not being admitted, or it's always denied to have this responsibility of going to support your wife, share responsibility to go tested and get treated. As you know, not only that, I mean, women like Grace, they didn't know what is happening to them, and they don't know what's happening to them until it is too late. All this, why Merck More Than a Mother is very, very critical for Africa. Why it's very critical for us to come here to aspire, to discover and explore opportunities of collaboration and partnerships, to be able to build capacities in fertility care capacity in Africa, because who else will help in this except you, because you already been through this long time ago. And of course also define interventions to how to improve ways of raising awareness, define intervention to break the stigma around infertile women and infertile couples in general.
In my country, infertility care or fertility care services are actually private, and the clinics are all within the capital city. There are 5, but all within the capital city, and quite expensive for the ordinary person to actually even afford. So it costs about $5,000 for one to have these services, which the ordinary person, as I said before, in the rural area cannot afford. And worst of all, people in the rural area, because this subject is a subject that has not been discussed before. So most of the people do not even know that they can actually be assisted to actually become mothers or fathers. So they live with the challenge. And we are happy that Merck approached me, and I had to take up this mantle. And we did launch this awareness campaign in 2016, February. And from that time on, we are not turning back. We have now been speaking publicly about infertility, its prevention, and of course aware that close to 80% of these cases can actually be prevented.
When you get married, your inheritance, which in most cases is land where you will build your house, is where you're married, and you are buried where you're married. And so for most cases, even when you are infertile, it is very difficult for your parents to get you back home, because the land at home has already been distributed among the boys, and therefore they want you to persevere in that marriage. That's why you are seeing majority of the women continued to suffer, even some of them telling you that their backs are burned, and they are still supposed to persevere where they are married. In this circumstance, mobilizing them, sensitizing them, but also changing the cultural shift to tell the people of the continent, and in my case in Uganda, that when a woman is married and the husband side doesn't welcome her anymore because she's infertile, please, let's put a law that will facilitate the woman to go back to where she's born and get her inheritance and her support and her land and her house where she's born.
Sierra Leone, we do not have the capacity, we do not have an IVF clinic. We were never able to treat, to even diagnose infertility. Dr. Sarah from Uganda, was talking about $5,000. In Sierra Leone, it's completely different. You have to think about buying a ticket. You have to think about paying for accommodation wherever you decide to go to be treated for infertility. Sierra Leoneans up to today do not have that option. But thanks to Merck More Than a Mother, we've already identified some doctors to be trained, and it's amazing coming from not having enough specialists. We're going to have the first set trained by Merck. So thank you very much. I'm happy I was able to meet with most of you, because it would not have been possible if I did not meet dynamic women.
When my child was born through a surrogate mother, I had to go through adoption because we didn't have a law that governs surrogacy in our country. So I had to go through a very longer process of adopting my own baby, and it took almost 4 years for us to be allowed to have him as legal parents. And so the law that we advocate for in Kenya also assures women who get children through surrogate mothers that are also recognized by law as biological parents of that child.
I have to thank Merck for coming to communicate with us, and it really have awakened a lot of discussions surrounding the issue of infertility, because even now in the social media, when we went back to see a number of discussion about infertility, it has been so very exciting to see how people have been talking about this issue all this year. There is a new concept that they actually put on the media now, Mama Zero. I think it's something that to do with people who do not get children, but we have to come and educate also through the media, because we actually said, how many of you can tell us about who aborted a baby, for instance, rather than talking about Mama Zero who never have been pregnant or something like that. So we are using a lot of channels in order to educate the young people through the media and also the platform that the facility have created. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Julieta. And I have as an answer for the balancing between the family planning and the infertility. It's just a very simple answer. The families who has more, they have less. We don't want 9 and 10 and 8, yeah? So they can have less, and then who does not have at all, at least they have the right as a human right to have at least one. So it's a really balanced. So the fertility rate is high because of the families who has more than 2 or 3, and it's not even supporting the economy.
After the success of the partnership model between Merck More Than a Mother and India and Indonesia, more opportunities will be explored to build fertility care capacity and defining interventions to break the stigma around infertility in Africa and Asia.
My question will go now to Dr. Kamini Rao, Ambassador of Merck More Than a Mother. And the role you played with us is a great role to train the first 4 candidates from Tanzania. The first, actually, they are going to be the first IVF and embryology specialists in Tanzania, and embryologists from Ghana who also be the first embryologist in Ghana. So I would like for you to share with us this experience, and how do you feel this will be sustainable for the rest, because you are also going to train Sierra Leone, and yeah.
It was a pleasure to see that when these 4 students came across. I didn't find this as a challenge because we are doing it for a long time, in fact over 8 to 9 years, and thanks to Merck's funding, we were able to set up this training center, and it's doing very well. So having these 4 students coming across was just adding to the numbers. But as far as the students were concerned, the first thing they said is that we would like to learn everything. So the fire in the belly was there. The second thing was, where do we start? So right from the beginning, we took them through the theory part and the practical part. And we found that the interest level, the intelligence level was the same as anywhere else in the world. So it is not because they were not intelligent, there were no opportunities. So when they learned through, and in fact they've finished, I think Rasha has had a video also of what they've said, but more importantly, it was a great learning experience for me that just because of lack of opportunity, many people suffer in countries because there's no facility available.
I first like to convey what has been said before about this training is an absolutely wonderful partnership we have been creating, particularly when I first approached by Merck, Russia in this case, introducing the concept how we can share, initiating a concept of empowering women in Africa. The first time that struck me when I came back from Australia, the first thing I see about Indonesia, the same thing what Africa is happening at the moment. At the time, there was no training program, there was no clinicians, there was no embryologists that was properly trained, and we had to do everything our own, which is something that we feel that this is something that we need to share. We need to be able to empower to many other centers elsewhere, particularly in Africa. There is a very big need towards infertility care. So when I was invited to Kenya, I was really quite impressed to see that the level of knowledge, the level of excitement of the potential embryologists, clinicians towards going forward into embarking on a proper ART programs to provide good services in Africa. So
the issue of capacity building, this is a remarkable program. It's attracted the attention of not just the societies that you mentioned, but the American Society of Reproductive Medicine. So this has gone global. It should go global because what you've created is a paradigm for the way we should go about looking at this problem. So we thank you very much for what you and Merck have done, and I have had the privilege of discussing this with the other leaders back in Frankfurt in Germany, and I know that they are just as excited and just as passionate, maybe not just as passionate, but awfully passionate about this program. So we thank you, and we thank the Foundation for moving this forward. Thank you very much.
I would really like to thank Merck first, because when I was elected as a president-elect for Aspire, somebody from Merck came up and said, what is your vision? And for Aspire, and as where, you know, Merck can help you. And I said, you know, I'm coming from the developing countries, and I have a lot of developed countries in my region as Asia Pacific. So can't we really do something together and build up areas or centers of excellence where we would be helping in capacity building, training people from the developing countries, so that what I'm really looking at is that a woman in some corner of Pakistan or Africa should have equal access to the treatment which a woman in America or Europe will have. And that cannot be done unless and until we have people who are trained equally well, who are provided the infrastructure where they can perform well.
The issue of pioneering IVF, as you are trying to set up, first, is that once you do this, there will be a multiplier effect. From our pioneering effect in Lagos, now today in Nigeria, there are 64 IVF clinics in Nigeria. So we must thank Merck that what you are doing is sowing a seed.
I would like to thank Merck. Thank you for inviting me to sit on this high panel to discuss infertility problem, which is, as you say, it's not just within Africa, it's like a global thing. Yes, and even in Asia, we have the same problem, but it is like a taboo to talk about it. So it is something that is not much discussed, it is quiet. And with Merck, then more than a mother, coming in aid to help women with their fertility problems and to empower women to have a life even if they don't have children, if the husband abandon them or chase them out. On behalf of all these women in the world, I would like to thank Merck for the beautiful work you're doing to help women, to empower women abroad. But I also must warn you, when you empower women, they become overpowering. Thank you very much.